Hello, everybody. Hello, Krish, Madeline, and Peter. How are you all doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, doing great. Excited to be here.
Good here. Thanks.
Awesome. I can hear you. If my AirPods die again, please let me know. Great timing on that. So very glad to have you all here. Everybody who's attending, same as the other panels, feel free to drop any questions in the chat and we'll try to get to them as best as we can. This will be a 30-minute session ending at 5, and we'll be trying to take as many questions as possible. But we always like to start these panels off on hearing about everybody's kind of unique journey. So just quick intro about yourself, where you're working, what your role entails. And although we're all in consulting here, all of those roles can mean something different at your firm or in this specific role. And then how you actually got into that role, your journey, if you want to start at kind of undergrad and go from there. So who would like to kick it off for us? Peter, would you like to go?
All right, fine. Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Peter Kinsley. I'm a manager at Deloitte Consulting. I started in consulting right out of undergrad, where I applied on our kind of job board. I went to Middlebury College in undergrad. I started doing strategy work focused on healthcare, and that was back some time ago. Don't want to reveal my age, but back in 2012. And over time have pursued different types of work and projects. And I took a break for business school where I went to Northwestern for 2 years, and then I've been back working in our innovation and digital practice. Great to meet you all.
Awesome. Madeline, would you like to go?
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Madeline. I'm an associate out of the McKinsey Denver office. I joined the firm out of an MBA program. I went to the University of Michigan, where I did a dual MBA and a Master of Science in Sustainability. I came into consulting. I had no idea what consulting really was before I started an MBA. My background is in nonprofits and in the environmental public sector. So I was doing a lot of research and policy work. When I came to school, didn't know I wanted to do consulting. So if this is something that you're just starting to think about, that's totally fine. Within the firm, I do a lot of work actually within sustainability, and also I'm on a lot of the pro bono studies, working in the public sector, but have worked across industries. So there's a little bit of everything. I am technically an integrative consultant, so I'm open to doing anything, but I like to specialize. And yeah, go blue, all the Michigan people out there. Let's go. I went to undergrad at Tulane University as well, so if there's any Green Wave supporters.
Nice. I'll go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Krish. I'm from BCG out of the Chicago office. I'm a little younger than the other two. I recently started back in August, but before that I did Teach for America down in Dallas and went to the University of Illinois. I'd studied finance and pre-med back there, and right now at BCG in a generalist role, but I like to work on public health and general public sector and social impact projects. So yeah, happy to answer whatever questions y'all have.
Awesome, and we already have a question that came in the chat, so we'll kick it off with that. Samantha's asking, the only experience consulting that she had was volunteering at an organization that does pro bono data science consulting for nonprofits. How can I leverage that in my career search? I don't know who would like to kick it off.
Go ahead, Peter.
Go for it. No. Jump in.
Yeah, I think the coolest thing about consulting is that there's not any experience that prepares you for consulting. You can come in with any experiences. And so if you've helped people in any way, it sounds like you're actually doing some consulting, which probably, you can leverage for sure in storytelling. But I think really what consulting firms are looking for is curious people that like to solve problems and to work with people and can empathize with clients. And so anything that you've done in any way where you've had to go in and help someone working through a difficult problem and had to empathize with their fears and help them strategize the future, I think that's consulting work, and you can definitely leverage it in your storytelling. Again, I really don't think no matter which firm you're going to, there's any like one experience that prepares you to do this. It's a learning model and a great development opportunity. And so they just want people that are open-minded.
Perfect.
Yeah, I would echo what she's. Sorry, go ahead, Peter.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just saying, I like what you said. I think it really comes down to just like the skills that are transferable. And you have some consulting experience. I had none before I applied for this role. So it really just comes down to like, are you able to like problem solve, like communicate effectively? And you're already doing some of that work, so you should be fine.
Awesome. We have some more questions coming in the chat. As a first-year MBA student, not from a target school for major consulting companies, how can I break outside my school for an MBA internship? Should I just focus on a full-time role after I get my degree? This is a great question because we hear this a lot from students. They feel like they have zero chance if they're not at a target school. And I know some of you had unique paths here, so just curious, any tactical tips or just high-level advice for Brian?
I think, and only speaking for me and my firm's experience, while there may not be a job posted on, or if there isn't a job posted on your school's website, if you're able to network and find the recruiters that do campus recruiting, there's a decent chance that they would kind of put you in the pools that are considered. So that's my take there.
Yeah, I would echo that. Definitely get connected with recruiters. I think one of the things is that people think of recruiters as like scary or evaluative. They are there as like resources to help people and to get you connected to the right people. So going to their websites, learning a lot. And then the other thing is like take something that feels big and unmanageable, like a massive firm like Deloitte, BCG, McKinsey, and target in on what you're really interested in. Why is it that you're interested in consulting? Maybe what office that you want. Then you can make clearer connections with people directly and leverage those into opportunities and hearing more about, sort of the process. It can be hard just because there's so many applicants every year, but the more targeted you are, I think the easier it is.
Any advice on actually making those connections or starting that search? So whether it's an MBA or an undergrad, like how do I really make those connections, or how did you find and make those discoveries? Because I'm just sure just Googling, Deloitte or one of the firms doesn't really tell you much. Like how would somebody go about doing that discovery process?
So I went through this recently, so I guess I'll speak to it. So I come from a non-target school background. I was coming from teaching. So it's a lot of like just trying to jam your foot in the door at first. So it's all about like leveraging your network first off. So if you know people that know people that know people that maybe work at some firm that you want to work at, like just connecting through them. Sending cold LinkedIn messages work a lot of times if you have something in common with someone. That's also great. Just like make sure it's like personalized and you're being very tactical who you're responding to and like messaging. That's how I'd say like get your foot in the door, and then from there it's just like having conversations and just asking people to connect you to other people at the firm and going from there.
Yeah, I think as a rule of thumb, you should, for any company that you're trying to apply to, reaching out to at least 5 people on LinkedIn ideally with some kind of connection to you or interest or something like that. And maybe you get a couple to respond and maybe they toss you on to somebody else. If they take your call, they're looking to help you out. But I think just it will take pavement pounding, but it's more likely, more successful going that route than just applying and sending your resume into a black hole.
Yeah.
I would just add to that. I think there's a balance that you need to strike when you're cold reaching out to people, in that you don't want to be overly transactional, but also like make sure there is an ask. I get a lot of LinkedIn messages like, "Hi, we both went to Tulane," and I'm like, "Cool, I love that for us. How can I like help you? What can we do?" So like make an ask, but also don't pester someone with just like, "Hi, I need a coffee chat. Here are my times." Make a connection. So just find that balance.
So the messages shouldn't be, "Hi, I want a job. Can you get me a job?"
Can you get me a job? The answer is no, but I can help connect you with people.
Yeah, like what Peter said is we are humans at the end of the day, like just like you.
And that human-to-human interaction skill is actually really important to learn and very helpful in consulting in particular, for sure. So I think practicing those messages is important, and making sure that, like you mentioned, not transactional, but a balance. So people understand why you want to connect or what you want to talk about. Super helpful. We have a question here about what could you share what a day in your life is this says a social impact consultant, but let's rephrase the question more broadly. A day in the life of a consultant, whatever your particular niche is. You wake up, what do you do next? And I'd love to hear from each one of you because I think it will be different. So Krish, do you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, sure. I think it depends a little. I mean, each day is very different from the last, and I'll speak to what my experience has been. First off, it depends like if we are at the client site or not. So I'll speak to a day in the client site because we've been traveling recently, and that's where I am right now. So I think it's like we wake up, like I said, we generally like walk over to the client site together, and then have like a morning check-in and just talk about what our priorities are for the day and just making sure we're all aligned on like what we need to get done with our manager and everyone else on the team. And then throughout the day, it's just like if there are client meetings, we go to those. Sometimes they're virtual, sometimes they're in person, especially with like COVID now. I think most people have shifted to a lot of virtual meetings. And then in between, it's doing the actual work of like doing the analyses and like making the slides and having conversations with some of the clients, et cetera. And then we usually wrap up with having a checkout at the end of the day. Sometimes there's work to do after, sometimes there's not. And then it just kind of depends on what the day looks like in terms of the workload from there.
So what's the average hours we're looking at here?
I usually like to get to the office around like 8 a.m., but we usually don't have like a check-in till like 9:30, sometimes 10, depending on the day. And sometimes I clock out at 5 because we have nothing to do after that. Sometimes I'm up until 11 because we have a big meeting the next day. It just really depends. But I would say I've been leaning more towards kind of like 7 or 8 it usually is when my day ends.
Okay. Madeleine, let's hear about your typical day, what type of tasks you're doing and what that routine could look like.
Yeah, I'm going to give the classic consulting answer on it super depends. It depends on what type of study that we're on or project that we're on. I have done 2-week sprints of projects. So that means like we've just gone to a client for 2 weeks and those are really intense. That probably means that we're checking in every morning. We have a clear outline of where we need to be in 2 weeks. And it is just like, go, go, go. Right now I'm on a longer pro bono study that we're working really closely with a foundation, with the Markle Foundation. And so essentially what we're doing, we have to move at the pace of our client, and that can sometimes be a lot slower. It's a lot more ongoing relationship. We're reaching out in communities and trying to build these relationships. My hours are not super tough, but that comes with its own types of challenges in terms of like, how do we move something forward? And so it's really going to depend on your client and the type of work that you're doing. I so far haven't traveled for my studies. Doesn't mean that it's not happening. It's just most of the clients that I've worked for are still remote, so we stay remote. Which I love because it means that my hours can be more my own. I can, I was just doing laundry right before this, which is great. And then in terms of, I don't know which other parts of the day are, I guess like just general hours. I think the thing to keep in mind is that there's also like everything consulting, there's lots of other things outside of projects that you might be interested in being involved in. I'm really involved in recruiting efforts. So I try to like save a lot of hours in the afternoons to do that. I like to be a really big part of our Denver office community and planning events. That's stuff that brings me joy, but it is on top of my work. And so there's a lot of opportunities kind of like when you're in school to be involved in like side stuff as well as your classes.
Awesome. And Peter, we'd love to hear your day as well.
For sure. Yeah, so for me, I work in our design innovation field in our digital practice. So my work or most of my projects are rooted in or around what our clients' customers feel and think and believe. So in the typical day, there's some kind of comment. No, well, firstly, every day is exactly the same. So, I'm kidding. But generally, to the extent that I can generalize, we have a team stand up in the morning, and then we'll just say the rest of the day is in some ways, speaking with our clients' customers or surveying them, or in a non-COVID world, although we're starting to do it now, we would go travel to where our customers and observe them in their natural habitat. And then we would spend, a decent amount of time reflecting and analyzing this information, both qualitative like notes, as well as data and survey data about what's interesting about our clients' customers. And then another large portion of what we're doing is distilling that into a story and a presentation to bring our clients along and communicate our results to them. So there's a decent amount of coming together as a team and figuring out what we need to do, and dividing, conquering, and splitting up. And each person kind of has something to do with regards to this whole project, and then coming together and checking in. So there's like coming together, splitting up, coming together, splitting up. And then at the manager level, we have to, Madeleine and I have to make sure that all of this is coordinated and the wheels aren't falling off, and then hours kind of ebb and flow, with extracurriculars being kind of the icing on the cake. So I do recruiting as well, mostly in Chicago for our innovation practice. They could be a 9 to 5. My team is also across all time zones, so we have stand up a little bit later in the day because I don't make our West Coasters get up early. But it could be, depending on the nature of the work, longer hours. But we try not to make that a consistent thing.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah.
I just wanted to add, I think, being honest, people have heard consulting has rough hours, and I think that's really true. I don't think there's any reason to hide that. But one of the things that was my greatest learning is the hours get better as you get better. And that doesn't mean that there's actually less hours. You just get so much better at your job. You're more efficient at doing things. And so sometimes it can feel, when you first start, the hours are really crazy. But now something that used to take me an hour to do takes me 10 minutes. Just because this job is a lot about reps and just learning as you go. And so it does get better over time.
Awesome. And I think a perfect follow-up question to that is, what are some of the hard skills and soft skills needed for consulting? Because it's, one thing hearing about what typical days and how you can get better at that and manage your day better, but what could a student be working on, and what are the specific skills that translate into that? And what kind of resources could they use to be working on those skills today? Madeleine, do you want to start off with that? We can go back.
Sure. Hard and soft skills. Okay, I see a specific question around Excel, so maybe I'll start there. Y'all, I'm really bad at math. I am not a quantitative person at all. It was a real struggle for me, and I just want to be real honest about that. It is not a requirement to come in with any level of skills. What is required is showing an ability to be trainable and someone who's open-minded to learning. There are things that will make your job easier. If I was an Excel whiz, I could probably do my work a lot faster. But one of the things that you're going to do when you enter the firm is talk to you have professional development people who are going to say, hey, what are some skills that you have and where are areas that you want to improve? For me, data analytics and working with data was something I really wanted to improve on. And so it was a really targeted approach where I worked with my manager to make sure that I was going on projects where I'd have exposure to that, but maybe it wasn't everything that I was responsible for until I could boost up my skills in those areas. So I do think, quantitative analysis can be really helpful, but it's not everything. In terms of soft skills, like I said, it's people skills, it's storytelling, it's empathizing with clients. I think that can't be underrated. It's why I always tell people it's equal parts important to do the case as the behavioral. Both of those things are really important to being a consultant, and they're testing for both of them equally. And as you think about that, just be curious about problems. Some ways to practice that is just thinking, I was telling someone earlier today, read the newspaper. When you read a headline, think about who were the people impacted by those headlines. Think about the questions you would ask if you were in a position for that. Start getting curious about problems. I think that will prepare you a lot.
That's great. Would anybody else want to hop in on that?
I think you hit on all the right things. I mean, coming in, it's really just that critical thinking and problem solving when it comes down to it. And a lot of the hard skills of Excel and Tableau and all those other weird softwares that you might use, you will learn on the job. And if you don't know them beforehand, you will learn very quickly. Just again, going through all the reps of doing it. And so it's when you're in your interview, they're not going to test you and make you code some thing on Excel or whatever. But like they will generally ask what do you feel like your strengths and weaknesses are, and you can be honest there, and like that's something you can work with your like talent managers and your whoever's managing on your case, like figure out how to get better at those things.
Perfect.
And if there was a surprise coding interview, I'd be out of a job.
Well, it's good that you mentioned that, because actually the mock casing came up earlier, and Odyssey is actually a good resource for that, because we've added now where a professional can select that they're open to do mock casing. So you can filter by that and just see who's willing to do that, because just putting in the reps is really important for those. And a lot of the professionals have been in consulting and aren't even in there anymore. So you wouldn't think they could do mock casing, but there's a lot of them in there that'll help you out with that. So definitely recommend checking that out. As kind of a follow on to that, it's okay. So there are the skills, but then what are the profiles you think will help somebody stand out if they're applying for one of these roles? This question says in particular graduate students, but we have a mix of undergrad and grad here. So, somebody's coming in, they don't have consulting experience. What can they have on their resume that might really help them stand out?
Yeah, I can take this one first. So, one of the benefits of recruiting for consulting is, and I think Madeleine already said this, most people don't have prior consulting experience coming into this. So like everybody has a diversity of experiences. People don't care where you came from, or like companies care less about where you came from and what your title was, but they're really interested in what you did there. So when we think about, what we do in our typical day, we are talking with clients, we are distilling and communicating thoughts clearly and concisely, we're analyzing data in some way, we're really understanding the so what and what this means for our clients. So anytime you can do that in your past experiences or in a class project or in volunteer opportunities, those are all valid and should be treated as such when you're in an interview or writing your resume, and need to be just worded and phrased and kind of framed in a way that you're already doing these things. It might not have the label of consulting, but they're just as valid, and you should feel good and confident about the kind of portfolio of experiences you have.
Yeah, I would just add to that, like I would do some soul searching, whether you're undergrad or grad, honestly, with any of your experiences. Think about the stuff that you just feel really good at. Like when you've been in a group project, like where do you feel like, yes, I've got this, like this is where I thrive. Think about experiences that you've had that energize you, and then make sure that comes across in your resume. Like I think too often we're writing resumes thinking it's what the other person wants to hear instead of like what we're really great at that we need to make sure shines through. And so share it with a friend and just be like, what comes up? Like, what would you say are my key talents after reading this? And if it's not coming across to them, it's not going to come across to the recruiter.
Yeah. Another quick point that I was just raised by Madeleine that I think we didn't kind of emphasize in the previous question is the idea of teaming and collaborating. Consulting is an inherently interpersonal job. Companies want people that not just make do, but like thrive in a team environment. So anytime you're leading a team, on a team, influencing others, those are all things that you want to highlight as well.
And we had a similar question come in from a few different people, so I want to definitely hit on this. There's so many consulting firms out there. How did each of you choose your firm? One person mentioned location, but really, I guess, where you landed, how did you choose that? Krish, do you want to pick that because you've most recently went through this process?
Yeah. I think, this is also going to sound very cheesy, but like it really just comes down to like who you feel like you fit in with the most. At the end of the day, a lot of consulting firms do generally the same type of work. Of course, there's like roles where you like specialize in things, but generally you're doing, again, the same type of work. So at the end of the day, it was just like me having conversations with people across the different firms I had offers with and just feeling like who I wanted to like work with, interact with on a daily basis. So if you are like fortunate enough to get multiple offers, is like just ask to like talk to the associates and like who is doing the work that you'll be doing and like see how they like it. They'll give you very honest answers about like the hours they work and things like that. So it's just like where do you see yourself? And like, because at the end of the day, you're going to be the one that's working there for 8 to 12 hours a day. So like you want to enjoy that day in and day out. So that's how I chose.
Cool.
Yeah.
There
I would
may be
just-
companies that, based on there may be companies that are better fit or have a niche or an area that you're a better candidate for. So say you have like a healthcare background, there are companies that specialize in certain types of healthcare or digital or other things. So beyond the big name brands, there are other companies that are probably worth considering because they're looking specifically for folks like you.
Yeah. I would just add that, like, and this is just applies to any type of job search you're doing. Like, please, please, please look at this as a courtship, and that, like, it is a two-sided street. You have to like them as much as we like you. Like, and so do the type of networking that helps you find out if you like a firm. Like, it makes it more authentic and more interesting instead of just kind of coming and being like, I want to do consulting. Can you give me a job? It's like, I want to know about your job, and I want to know about what makes you excited to be here, because I want to see if that's something I vibe with. Ask about the length of studies, ask about the types of studies they do, ask about the industries they specialize in. It makes recruiting more interesting. And at the end, you should have a lot of information that will, like, equip you to be like, I know this is the right place for me. And they're not just, generically all the same. I think each firm has great reasons to join it. And it's just about finding the right fit, but that should be on both sides.
So get out there and have conversations with people. That's the best first step, it sounds like. We're running up on time. I'll try to squeeze one more question in here. And this is a question about exit opportunities. Do you feel like you are gaining experience that would make you confident to work at an early stage startup or help it scale? Or do you feel more confident seeking an internal strategy role at a mature public company, since the majority of your clients fit that mold? Great question, and super interesting to think about kind of longer term skills that you're picking up. I don't know if anybody in particular on the panel relates to this question.
I think for me and other folks may have different answers for this. It depends on what you did, and what you've done in your time in consulting. Just like people have different experiences that they kind of position to bring in and help them be good consultants. On the way out, companies, yes, they love you have baseline business skills and strategic thinking and kind of the things that come with being a consultant, but then also what's the nature of your work, and they'll be really interested in that, and so they compare it to what they're looking for.
Anybody else want to chime in on that? Or I think that kind of covers it.
Coming in, it's like it's very transferable, like the skills you're learning here, like I said. So I think it's like really whatever you want to do. It's like people have exited to just about anything you can think of. So I wouldn't pigeonhole yourself into something specific.
Yeah,
I think Madeleine meant, oh, go ahead.
I zipped out for a second, so I'm not sure. I didn't catch all of Peter's answer. I'm sure it was wonderful. But I would just say, like, just be honest about what you're thinking about. Once you join a firm, you can always say, like, hey, I'm really thinking about startup opportunities post firm, and I want to make sure that I have opportunities to have those types of experiences internally. Like, there's a lot of optimizing you can do to get the skills you want. And as long as you're being like a great firm member and contributing back, there's no expectation that you're going to work for these places forever. They know they're development companies at the end of the day. And so, like, if you're honest, like, here's where I want to be, I need these types of industry experiences, I think that you can optimize your path to land wherever you want.
Yeah, I think your point earlier about raising your hand for experiences that you thought fit your path better is so great, because unlike the panels we had earlier, when you're in a role, you're usually in it for a certain amount of time. These consulting roles, everybody's on projects that have a limited duration, so you get to kind of experience different things, and hence all the it depends that we heard so much on the panel today. Thank you all so much. We're at 5:01. I very much appreciate all three of you joining us today. I hope you all enjoyed the panel and sharing your insights.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Feel free to reach out.
Yep. Feel free to reach out.